This is Lady Myya. Hello, you guys. We are back with another podcast. So, I have a special guest joining me. Okay, his name is David Munford. Okay, I'm going to tell you, he is a podcaster as well. And the name of his podcast is Seeing Red with David Munford. So, we are going to get all the deets. We're going to talk about this stuff. And we're going to see what's going on. Because he said he had a really, really crazy story. And I said, oh, I love stories. And y'all know how y'all like stories too. So this is what we're going to do. So, my Mayan tribe, please welcome Mr. David Munford. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being on. Thank you for having the time. Your effort and your energies is greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay, so Seeing Red. What made you decide to name it?
Well, I actually did not name it. I was on a podcast for the automotive industry, which that podcast has not come out yet, and I need to contact the person about that one. But she saw the red glasses and she was like, oh my gosh, you actually wear red glasses. I was like, yeah, I do. So so after talking, and then she's a branding specialist for automotive industry, she sent me a kind of a photo that she drew of red glasses. And then underneath it, she went Seeing Red with David Munford. I was like, okay. She said, well, that needs to be your podcast. I was like, let's go with it. And because she said you have red glasses on, then that needs to be your branding for your podcast. And I ran with it, and it took off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So wait, okay, give me the whole spiel, if you will, of why. Like, what is it about Seeing Red that made this thing your brand?
For me, well, one is the red glasses. That's just I wear red glasses, and everybody knows me by the red glasses guy on LinkedIn. Everybody knows me by that. So, and everybody at work knows me by the red glasses guy. So when I started the podcast and Seeing Red, I was like, okay, what does it mean? What does red mean? How can I tie that into a podcast? And because everybody thinks of red as anger or hostility, but that's not who I am. I'm not an angry person. I'm not a hostile person. So I looked up the color red, and red is love, passion, energy, lifeline, just everything in life. And a lot of the podcasts I started doing, that's what people were bringing, was their lives, their vulnerability, their love for their passions, their love for their life, everything they've done in life. So that's my passion. That's my mission statement.
I think about your red as rose-colored glasses, and some people just want to see one thing, but it's really this, but with the passion and everything else like that. I really, really like that. So, okay, so what was your take?
The way this all started, and I guess I can explain it this way. The way this whole podcast started, the way this whole crazy journey started for me was April 7th. I took a voluntary layoff from my work because pandemic had hit the automotive industry, and I was not making any money at work. So I went to my boss and said, hey, can I take a voluntary layoff? He's like, well, I'm not sure. We don't know what things are going to go. So give us a couple days. We'll figure it out. Well, it went about a week and a half, maybe week and a half, and he called me in the office, said we will allow you to do it. So I got home, and my wife was a school teacher, and she's been virtual on and off through this whole thing. And she's like, well, what are you going to do while you're sitting at home? I said, well, I don't know. So I got involved in LinkedIn, jumped on jumped on a lot of LinkedIn Live, sharing my story and sharing where I've been and where I'm going. And then people are like, well, you've shared so much. Why don't you start your own podcast to give people the opportunity to come on and share their stories and share where they're at? I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that. And people said, use the Anchor app. It's easy, it's simple, it's free. Just do it. I was like, okay, I did it. And I started with one of my friends on a Tuesday night at his house. And it's been history since. And my takeaway is just being able to find a hobby I love, enjoy doing, and then giving someone the opportunity to talk, or someone the opportunity to just share things that they need to share, because most people don't have someone that they can talk to or have someone that they can have a conversation with that will just listen. And that's kind of what started.
No, I understand that one completely. I mean, I guess that's how us podcasters usually start. It's just like somebody ignored us, and now we have everything to say about that. So I mean, that's always a great venting. I guess most people just get tired of talking and nothing being implemented.
Right.
So everybody needs to vent at some point in time. So that's always a good thing. Okay, so go ahead.
And it's not always venting. It's just giving. Like I interviewed somebody about a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I did not. We were talking, and it was her first time kind of doing a podcast, and she was one of the most important podcast I've done, because she actually became very vulnerable and shared stuff that she had never shared before. And after that podcast, and we got off talking, my mission, because people say, what's your mission? What's your vision? What's your passion about this? And I was like, I know what it is, but I didn't know how to put it in words. And after that podcast, my whole vision, the whole world of this whole journey came together, and the words just finally just clicked, and it made me think. I wrote it down because I could never think about it again. And the whole thing is giving a voice to the voiceless and providing a safe place to be vulnerable and authentic and have a real, uncut, open conversation about any topic that could bring encouragement to others, where they can see we are all human and can come back from anything in life. And every time since then, that finally came around, and people were like, well, what's your vision what's your state? And those words finally clicked in like the last couple of weeks. And I'm like, okay, I've got to write that down, because I will never be able to say that again. And when people ask me what my vision is, I send that to them. Or what's the podcast about? I send that to them. I'm like, this is it. This is everything of what it is.
Now, have you recorded that one?
I have not. I am probably. I've got a couple record episodes myself coming out that's recording this week with other people, but I'm going to be recording just a single one on my own of this, because this.
That one definitely. Yeah. Ooh, I can't wait. Got me goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. With with the things that you've gone through, because I know that you have this story. I know, that, like, you're like, oh, I'm going to tell you the story. And I'm like, wait, give me a second.
Yeah, I could.
I want to properly prepare for your story. At the same time, like, okay, so understanding that, of course, the pandemic hit, we kind of went to, I think a lot of us kind of went to a dark place for a while because we were so unsure. Now, does your story have anything to kind of do with that, or is it more so like it was something else?
It was totally different. It was totally before the pandemic even hit. The pandemic. Well, this had nothing to do with pandemic. I guess the pandemic, what it did do was allowed me to get my story out there on a grander platform, and reach more people than I ever thought of, and it gave me the platform to reach around the world. Where it's just been local to where I live, this gave me the opportunity to talk to people, and literally all over the world. I can't even begin to begin to say where I've had the opportunity to talk or been able to connect with people. And when people hear my podcast, people in other countries are starting to reach out to me and like, we want to be on your podcast. We want to come on and share our story with you.
I understand that. I think that is absolutely excellent. That is so excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm ready for the story now.
Okay, I'll give you tonight. I'll just give the condensed version because it could be a whole 2-hour, 3-hour conversation.
For things. Part one and
yeah, I can do part one. The way it all started is I grew up in a very strong Christian home. I mean, my dad was a minister. My great grandfather was a minister. So very strong Christian home. Loved going to church. Loved God. Loved everything. And graduated high school in '99. Moved to Atlanta. Did an intensive discipleship program there. While I was there for 2 years, got to travel all over the world, doing inner city work, doing some mission trips. In 2001, I had the opportunity to stay in Atlanta, but felt like God said, come back to Cleveland, Tennessee. So I came back, and that kind of started the resentment. I kind of started getting a little unhappy with God, or unhappy to have to come back, because I was living my own life. I was gone. And so I came back in 2001. Went back to church, just was not the same, did not feel the same to me. So I still did the same thing. Had my own apartment with a couple of guys, and at one point I had my own apartment for a while. And then in 2005, this is kind of where I call the dive off the deep end, or I turned everything. I walked away from everything. In 2005, I moved in with a female that I did not. I just decided to do it. I'm like, I'm 25 years old. I don't have to listen to what my parents say. I can do my own thing. Well, when I moved in with her, I quit going to church. I did not talk to my parents for 5 years and lived in the same town with them. I didn't even see my parents. I may have seen my parents at Christmas or Thanksgiving, not very much, and got involved. Now that I think about it and look back on it, I was an alcoholic for 5 years. I got highly addicted to pornography. I smoked cigarettes, but I could always put those down. That was never a habit for me. And then there was just a lot of other things that I got involved with, just because the person I was with was like, fine, do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you no. And we were more roommates than really than a couple. So, and then 2005, 2010, she asked me to move out after a party at the house, and I had to call my parents at age 30 and ask them to move back home. Well, that was a humbling experience, and that was probably that's one of the lowest points in my life of having to call that. I guess a low point that I had to call my parents and say, "Hey, can I come back home?" So I moved back home in 2010, and then 2012 I got involved. I got involved in a recovery program that my dad asked me to go to because he said if you're living in my house, you cannot go through depression or be depressed. Because I was depressed for almost a year and a half, having to move back in with my parents. So got into recovery in 2012 and lived with my parents till 2016 till when I got married and met my wife at church. And everything I've since 2010, everything I've learned about myself, everything I've learned about life, living the life I have now, I'm so happy that what I went through has really brought me back because it's really taught me everything. Everything I have is great.
Mm. Oh wow, that is
Yeah,
that's the awesomest testimony I've ever heard. Like I just want to tell you,
yeah,
that is so cool. Cause like I mean, you were the prodigal son.
yeah,
You just kind of went, you did your dirt, you did your thing, and you was just like, dang it, all right, fine.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was no choice of staying there or trying to work things out. She's like you need to move out. And I was so financially unstable that I couldn't get an apartment on my own. I couldn't do anything on. I couldn't. There's probably some friends I could have called to try to move in with them, but I was like, no, it's time to go back home. It's time to just. Hmm.
What was your takeaway from that experience?
Man, probably the biggest takeaway that I've learned since the last oh gosh 8 9 years is that my parents were always there for me. They were never trying to control me. I took it as they were trying to control me. They were not trying to control me. They were loving me, but I was too stubborn headed and like you just said, the prodigal son. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to go off and do my own thing, but I don't regret. I don't regret anything I did. I don't regret those 5 years because I learned a lot about myself and I learned a lot about how important my family is. And usually, you don't see what you have right in front of you when you're in it. You you have to be out of it to learn to see the forest for the trees.
That is the
So,
that's the wisest thing. Everybody says, never miss it until it's gone.
yeah,
And then, when you're not there, then, I mean, your whole dynamic, your whole thought process, everything that you thought, I think most kids are stubborn anyway. It's just like, you can't tell me what to do. Wait. Did we tell you that you had to pay this and do that and whatnot? And when they do get out there, I have my oldest daughter goes, Mom, I don't want to adult no more. Can you take this back over? And I'm like, no, you're grown. There's nothing I can do about that. You're 23 years old, about to be 24.
mhm,
You're on your own, Sister Sledge. I can't help you.
yeah,
But I mean, I think that is real. That's such an important lesson for all of us to really understand and know. Because, like you said, like you looked at them in another light at one point in time, or you had it in your mind that
mhm,
they were trying to tell you what to do, but they were only trying to guide you in the way to go that wasn't going to be so hurtful for you to have to endure.
right,
And what
exactly.
do? We endure it anyway.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
okay, so you have children, correct?
No, we don't. We have let me rephrase that. I have a I think 10-month-old German Shepherd puppy. So yes, I do have a child in the house. We have a fur baby, and she has taught me a lot of patience because I've never been a patient person, and she has taught me so many life lessons since we got her when she was 14 weeks old. So we've had her for quite a while since she was a puppy, but she has taught me so much about life and so much about myself and so much the word patience. She has taught me patience beyond patience.
Isn't it funny that the simplest things, I'm not saying your fur baby's simple, but the simplest people teach you the biggest lessons.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's so interesting to me because I'm like, here it is, we have these shows, and now we're learning how to really navigate through people,
Mhm.
and events, and topics and different things like that, because it's initially, before we even got there, it looked like it could be hard, it could be fun, but it could be like, okay, well, let's see how this works.
Yeah.
And then when you step in it, you like, oh man, like the waters is right here. You're like, I think I'm gonna have to redo this thing. Let's figure out what we gotta do again.
Yeah.
But it's still so simple because all we're doing is talking,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
And it's the biggest lesson, and it's so interesting to me. So where do you want to go forward?
I've been asked that. I think I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm having so much fun doing this, and having people that are pretty big names on LinkedIn that are reaching out to me pretty much every week, and they've heard my podcast, or I'll reach out to them and say, hey, just kind of almost like that fanboy thing, or just be like, hey, would you want to do it? And then they come back and say, we would love to be on your podcast. And when they actually schedule it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. I'm like having an actual one-on-one conversation with this person that I would never have thought I've had the chance with.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm talking to people all around the world, as
Yeah.
do you.
Yeah.
I love Australians. They are awesome.
Yeah.
They're so just so, let's just go with it. Just let it go. And I mean, I've talked to Indian and African and UK, and I'm waiting for this lady in Switzerland. Like I've been trying to get a hold of her. She's a hard person to get a hold of. Because the differences in our hours and different things, and
Hmm.
most of the time they want you to be up like 14 days before you gotta even do it. You're like,
Those are the ones I'm like, do I really want to? How do I really want to do this?
look, you can only put your times out there and just hope for the best.
Yeah. Or they say, if, like, come on my webinar, or come talk to me at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm still sleeping at 4 o'clock in the morning. How do no? That's my sleep time.
Like, okay, what's your 4 o'clock in the morning? I can work that.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my
yeah,
goodness, it's
I,
interesting.
it really is, and I totally agree with you. The best conversations I've had, or just looking at my calendar, the ones coming up, are people like in the United Kingdom. They're just like, I just want to do it. Let's just do it.
I just want to travel. I just want to go take a whole plane and just go over there and just be like, can we talk?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I have one. I have one. When is it? Wednesday night. The person's just like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like,
Exactly. Why
oh,
not?
okay. So
I think it's amazing. No, because I mean, we wouldn't otherwise really been able to like even talk to people around the
no.
world.
Mm-mm.
Like, what? Because when I first got my first one, I was just like, UK. But no, my first one, Canada. I got one of the movie producers and editors over there that did something, the Pineappleville heist. He was the writer, director, and producer of that movie, and it's on Amazon Prime. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah. Or the podcasts I've been on, people turn around and be like, "Can I be on your podcast? I want to come on your podcast." I'm like, I'm just like lowly me.
Right. I say the same thing. We gotta stop thinking that way because we're
I know,
actually
yeah,
getting there, right?
exactly. Or I guess I can. February 24th, Rob House is coming on my podcast, and he actually reached out to me and said, "Can I be on your podcast?" I was like, "Oh, that's a big name on LinkedIn." Or Judy Fox and Rena Fieldman Watts. I've been on her podcast twice. My wife's been on her podcast. She's like, "I want to come on your podcast." I'm like, dude, these are like big names on LinkedIn that they have their big podcast. They have their followers, but they want to come on mine. I'm just like, hey, this is what I want. I don't look at it as I'm trying to be showy. I'm just being who I am.
Look, I say the same thing. I said, I'm not boasting. I'm just sharing.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so then I need to know, like, when you talk to your people, right? You kind of just let them just go for it. Just, this is the topic. What is it that you have to say? Do you ask questions? Is it a back and forth kind of situation, or is it a conversation or something like that?
I learned from Gabriel Leal and I learned from Russ Johns and like Brian Cholman. I've kind of watched them, how they do their podcast. I have certain questions I may start out with, or some the person was like, "Well, I have this topic." I'm like, "Okay, great, let's talk about that." And then it just goes wherever it goes. It goes. There was one night, the funniest one I'll just remember forever. We talk about let it go, letting things go in life, how we don't need to hold on to things. And we ended up talking about the movie Frozen and Frozen 2. And I was like, okay, that's our podcast topic. Let it go into the unknown, going into the unknown, because we don't know where things are going to go. We don't know how life's going to take us. So it's just wherever the person wants to go or wherever they want to talk about is how the topic's gonna go.
I think that's funny because, like, I think for the most part, a lot of those Disney movies have such a powerful message, and we miss it because we're like, oh, this is for the kids. But the stuff is okay. My favorite one is Aladdin, right? I'm just gonna tell you, love Aladdin. And it's so funny because I was just like, I'm gonna marry Aladdin. If you see my husband, he looks like Aladdin. It's the funniest thing, but I could never tell him that because then he would be pissed. But it's like he was somewhere where nobody really saw him as who he really was. And now it's just like, I had to rub the lamp and be like, look, it's time to go. It's time to move. Let's do this empire. Let's do this. And when he stood up to do it, it was so easy. And I was just like, dude, you were supposed to do this a while ago. And he was just like, I just didn't really know. But it just takes somebody seeing something,
Right.
And I think that is so important. And see, your wife saw you, and she saw everything you was gonna be. She's like, wait, all right, I'm gonna have to polish this thing. We're gonna have to talk about it. We're gonna have to come back and we're gonna do something. But then we're gonna redo it. And
that's part 2. That could be part 2 of where,
She's just a wonderful, patient woman, isn't she?
More ways than you know.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, how was your home like? Peaceful, delicious.
It really is. Through this whole pandemic, through this whole thing, we were able to purchase our first house through this. We were able to we got the puppy, uh, and then and back in October, a vehicle I was driving just finally laid down. I knew it was about to, and I finally had to just give it up, and we were able to purchase a brand new, not a brand new vehicle, but a really nice vehicle that only through God, only through just doing what we've been doing and being smart with our money and just really working around it just fell in our lap because they gave it to me at the dealership to kind of to drive while my other car was trying to figure out getting worked. And when we decided to buy this, it was just like, okay, that's our vehicle. And how we got the vehicle is just still unbelievable because it's a 2012 Lexus RX 350 that just has 100,000 miles on it. Yeah, I mean, it has no miles on it.
Nothing.
It's nothing. No,
That was like a go to church and go to the grocery store car. That was it.
pretty much. I guess. I mean, and the thing is way loaded with everything, but it was like one of those things that God knew exactly what we needed and a vehicle that we need because we always said if the next vehicle we get, we need one that we can grow with as a with a family, and one that we can have for longer, and it was just perfect.
That's the blessing because you got leather seats and you got the puppy, and man, you good
We're good.
to
We're good. I mean, we love it.
go.
And
Now,
we
is it
showed my
lighter interior or is it darker
no,
interior?
it's wood interior. It's like the wood grain interior. I mean, this thing is lo-
Loaded.
loaded. And when we showed my parents, my my parents were like, "Oh my gosh, guys, you guys did great."
Yeah.
Because her parents don't live here, but we took and showed my parents, and my parents were so happy for us because they knew how we've been trusting God through it. We've been praying for something. We've been paying our tithes. We've been doing everything we should, and our lives had just been lining up to everything.
Mm, 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 mm. Doesn't you? Don't you just love it when a good plan comes together? I
Yeah.
say that everybody hates
No, I love that because it good plan things couldn't happen unless you didn't plan for it, or sometimes you don't
or you
plan for
believe
it.
God for it.
Yes, you got to believe God through it. That's one thing we've learned through our whole testimony, how things we've been through. We trusted God through a lot, and well, we've been through a lot, and I put her through a lot before we got married, and her sticking beside me, I couldn't be where I'm at today without her.
Oh my goodness! But you know what? I appreciate you. We're gonna have to definitely plan for part two because I know there's some other stuff. I saw that. I was just like, oh okay, so there's
Yeah,
there's some
yeah.
other stuff behind that. But definitely. So if you could please tell my Mayan tribe how to get a hold of you, dear heart.
The easiest way right now, and things will probably be more to come in the next couple weeks or couple months when I finally get things worked out. The easiest way right now is LinkedIn, or you can get me, you can email me. That's two of the easiest ways right now.
Well, you guys, y'all heard it here. Um, he is such an amazing person. Like I felt so compelled to ask him, like, "Hey, yo, don't you want to be on my podcast?" And he was like, "Sure." I
Yeah,
was like,
I mean, I'll
"Absolutely."
do it.
I love it because, like, I mean, I didn't know. I would see you, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't see you, and I'd be like,
Right.
what is David hiding over there?
Yep. And like the morning Bible study, Melanie says enough to where people are like, what? Sometimes I'm quiet, but there's days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to say something, but I'm just like.
But you feel like everybody else got something to say too, and theirs
Yeah.
might be more important than yours, and you're like, gosh darn it, I want to say something. So now I just start typing stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Oh my goodness, I appreciate you, David, so much, sir. You have been such an awesome guest. I really
Thank
had
you.
so much fun with you. Certainly. So we'll definitely get you back, you guys.
Okay.
You will be back. If I gotta harass him, I'll do that.
Hey, I'll do it anytime. I will make it work.
Yes, we'll do that. So, you guys, if y'all want to be on my show, which is Living Your Best Life with Lady Myya, of course you're here, so you know what it is. And so, you can always hit me up at admin@ladymyya.com or ladymyya.com. That's MYYA. And you know why? Because your homegirl is special. I want to hear your story. Go ahead. You can also text me at 214-529-0980. I look forward to talking to you.